Hello and welcome to Smash Hit Sports. I'm your host, Cody. We are having an absolutely electric college football season. We are halfway through. It's been nothing short of incredible. But even better than the college football season we've had so far is the guest I have today, Eric Froton, at CF Froton on Twitter. Everything will be linked, below the video. But he is the lead of college football and NFL draft analysis for NBC Sports Edge. This man knows more about like a G5 team's backup tight end than most people know about the Heisman contenders. He is that incredibly knowledgeable. Eric, welcome to the show, man. It is great to have you.
Man, that's quite a setup, Cody. I don't know if I can quite possibly live up to all that, but I sincerely appreciate it, and I'm excited because we hung out a couple times in real life. We got to hang out at the Fantasy Football Expo the past 2 years, and which is a really cool experience in itself because, and I don't know how you feel because I didn't get to talk to you afterwards, but like that whole event ended up going like from where it was in 21 to where it was in 22. It was a completely different experience, wasn't it?
It's unbelievable. The amount of people that were able to come this year and content creators across the fantasy space that were able to come together were really, really incredible. It's a good time. It is a good time. If you were in Canton, Ohio around August or around that area, I suggest you come out because it is absolutely bananas. I had to work Monday at 6 a.m., so I didn't get to stay for the karaoke and all that jazz, but I might have to take the day off.
I'm very sorry about that.
I know. I might have to take the Monday off next year.
I'm hoping they incorporate it maybe into the regular festivities next year. Maybe we could have a karaoke type thing.
Look, at this point it should be. We've included football. We might as well include talking into a microphone. It seems like those are the two best things that we do. So
exactly, and no Achilles or ACLs are going to go down in the making of the karaoke, though my hamstring did last year when I did a David Lee Roth scissor kick. And that took down my hamstring for 2 months. I had to do plenty of therapy on it.
That's tough, especially considering we played flag football too. That's the karaoke's what took you out. That's nuts.
Oh, that was last year. Oh no.
Oh, okay.
Flag football, yeah, I was ready, and we ran a rep against each other, a little practice rep, which Cody completed successfully. He was able to. I played D. Cody played O. Gave me a little juke, and then to the outside, and while I tried to wrap around, I couldn't. You gotta understand, Cody's a big dude. He's like 6'3", 215, probably, somewhere there, 210,
nailed
215.
Nailed it.
So, and I'm 6'3", too. I'm 200 pounds. But, though, I couldn't get around him. He beat me on the rep.
Hey, not only do we talk the talk about football, we walk the walk, too. We're out here running rounds. We're getting it done. We're getting it done. Oh, man.
That was a lot of fun, man. That was a good time, absolutely.
I know we talked about college football at the Expo. We're about halfway through the college football season now. I'm going to give you a second to brag on yourself. What is the thing that you were the most correct on coming into this season? The one take.
Oh, easy. Easy peasy. Ohio State wide receiver and future, hopefully, first-round pick, if these teams have any sanity, Emeka Egbuka. I was taking him everywhere. I took him everywhere. Everywhere. Like, we have a champion series, is what it's called, that Greg Brandt from Debbie Watch puts together of a bunch of the college fantasy football, content producers and such. And my share total out of 12 drafts is I think I have them 8 or 9 out of those.
That's crazy.
12. I have them in my home league. I have them in the CFF site. I have at least 2 of those 3 best balls that I did. So and I went and cut a couple videos and behind the scenes to the guys sort of a thing where I talked about Ibuka and how all of a sudden you're all taking him now. Like I've been taking him for the past 2 months and
talk your talk. You got to.
It's like you're taking my Ibuka now, right? So. Absolutely. Emeka Egbuka is a superstar. I knew it coming in. It's only been... it helped having Jackson Smith and Jigba get hurt in terms of giving him opportunity. But he was going to be on the outside. He was going to get regular reps anyways. It was happening. It's just people were treating him like a number 3 instead of, just because they were just... Depth charts aren't as settled as we think in the offseason. And every time, you reach around the halfway point and you just look at who the leading... rushers, receivers are. It's like, this is completely different than what we looked at as a top 10 during the season, because it's college and it's 131 teams and so much can happen, and what makes CFF and C2C leagues and Devi and Dynasty as well, so exciting is that you can be invested in those players as they come up.
Yeah, and it's the Ohio State wide receivers as a Notre Dame fan make me so mad, because it's like, oh, well, Olave, they had Olave and Garrett Wilson. It's like, yeah, but they might have not have been the best wide receiver on their team, like, because of Jackson Smith and Jigma, and then Jackson Smith and Jigma goes down, but like Marvin Harrison Jr. and Ibuka. It's like, where do they keep? And they have 3 more 5 stars behind them. It's unbelievable. I'm over it, man. As a Notre Dame fan, how am I supposed to keep up with that? It is what it is. Now, we let you brag, but I got to ask, what's your biggest miss? Because we all have them. If you make takes about football on the internet, you're going to have misses. What did we get wrong this year?
My biggest miss? Geez, that's a pretty good question. I will say, to this point, up until this past week, it was Quentin Johnston.
He had a hell of a week, though.
Up until this past week, It was Quentin Johnston. The first 5 games they had, or 4 games, he didn't cross 41 yards. I don't even think he had a touchdown. He was just completely ineffectual in pretty much every way, shape, or form. Otherwise, I would say, I'll go with a tight end here. I thought Isaac Rex, BYU, who had 10 touchdown receptions in 2020 and looked awesome, but he was hurt in 2021. I thought he was going to come right back out. Jaron Hall, who I love as a QB prospect. I think he's absolutely love him. Absolutely. Pro baseball draftee, acumen. I think he's got it. He handles pressure really well, too. Anyways, I thought that rising tide was going to continue to lift his boat and have him take over a role that Matt Bushman had, who was another guy. I loved Matt Bushman. His tape coming out of BYU was just amazing. I mean, just you watch his hands. Very, very few guys in any walk of football have hands like Matt Bushman, but he tore an Achilles right before his first season. Anyways, I thought he was going to be so much better, and I took him as a tight end in a lot of best balls. And the problem with best balls is, you have that tight end position, and you only have so many spots, and we want to get as many running backs as possible to deal with attrition. Yep. Obviously, you want as many bites of the apple at quarterback, so tight end sort of gets pushed to the back. So I took him in enough leagues where you take him, and then he hasn't been. He had a touchdown catch too, but very low volume stuff. And that infects your whole best ball roster because you can't replace those guys because they're on for the whole season. So that is, I think, in terms of the miss that I've had that's been most impactful to my rosters, that's been actually pretty impactful, even though it was a player that I was taking 12th, 13th, 14th round.
Tight ends, it seems at every level, are just so hard to predict. And usage, volume is king, but seeing usage vary even from week to week based on game plan, it's tough. In my opinion, it's the toughest position to predict in fantasy football.
It was, except for this year. I was very excited this week because my number 1 tight end, all right, coming out of the 2021 class, I absolutely love this guy, but he didn't get a chance to go through the testing process because he hurt his lower leg. I think it was ankle / whatever. Cade Otton had 43 yards this week in Week 5 from Tom Brady, and that kid is going to be a startable weekly tight end in fantasy football. Get ready at the pro level. Cade Otton. So I do love him. I could predict him, but otherwise, yes.
Yeah, he's a guy that I am lucky enough to have a lot of shares of because I listen to your sage wisdom. Gotta love it. Hey, I gotta get my brown nose points in here when I can.
You're the man, Cody.
Hey, I do what I do. So I need to talk about Texas A&M. I got to vent because I love chaos in college football, and Texas A&M had an opportunity to produce chaos this weekend. And Jimbo gets 4th down, or it was the last play of the game, regardless because of time. But just one of the most confusing play calls I've ever seen. Just a quick 5-yard out on the outside in a game where your passing game has not been great all day. What are we doing with Jimbo? And is he on the hot seat? Because $95 million is a lot of money to play a coach to not produce.
Yeah, even for the oil barons that support the Texas A&M team, I don't think they can quite swallow the $95 million investment that they made this offseason. What I think is more likely is, there will be staff heads rolling. And we all know how bad the offense has been. And like you said, predictable, mundane, boring, archaic.
Yeah.
Antiquated. Where do you want me to go? Anyway, we've all seen it. And definitely, I think, the OC, his name eludes me. It was the same guy that was at that Georgia that Kirby Smart had to get out to bring in Monken. He was one of the OC coaches.
Dickey?
Anyways. No, but that's what Phil Steele is for. Anyways, regardless, I definitely think it's a complete changeover at the coordinator level, and likely with several position groupings on the offensive side of the ball. Like, he's going to have to clean house in order to throw a bone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Daryl Dickey absolutely is the OC, and
let's go.
Is the co-OC. Well done. Well done. And no, he's the straight OC player. So, yeah, Dickey. He did such a great job at Memphis too. Like, he was one of the guys, like him, obviously Norvell, who's at Florida State, that had those great legendary Memphis offenses. He was the architect of,
and they were dynamic. Like that, they were offenses they were offenses that just relied on like having the better players. They were creative. They looked good. They made like Tony Pollard, Darrell Henderson, Antonio Gibson.
Antonio Gibson. Look at how he was used.
They were great, and yeah, I'm just stunned to see how mundane it's looked.
Absolutely, yeah, no doubt about it. It was terrible. And even watching that game, the only reason why they're in that game is because of 4 turnovers from Alabama. They lost 3 fumbles. It's like what the luck involved in losing, those 3 fumbles they put on the ground. All of it. It's just what. That's just how it is. Backup quarterback only threw for 111 yards. They couldn't throw. Hardly at all. The only big play they really made was that 35-yard cross to Jermaine Burton that, frankly, the safety completely took a terrible line on that, and he should have been able to at least tackle him as soon as he caught it, but he jumped it early. It was a bad play, but yeah, great. So they make one bad play in the defensive backfield, but then, I think Alabama ran for 288.
Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs.
They were one-dimensional. Jahmyr Gibbs looking good.
He's special.
Coming in the year, it was. I had a hard time looking at him and saying, "All right, look at the archetype of the Alabama running back: the Derrick Henrys, the Ingrams, Brian Robinson last year, Najee Harris, 220-pound badasses. Just like guys that will wear you out, and it's totally against the archetype. And it's like, is he going to be handling 20 carries a game? Like, he didn't get that at Georgia Tech. Like, he was spelled. Jordan Mason went and got a lot of reps. And then even last year, they didn't give... I don't understand why, but Jeff Collins is fired now.
Yeah,
so good.
Makes sense.
Good. Adios, amigo. So, he ran freaking Jahmyr Gibbs out of town. What a terrible, terrible job they did transitioning from the option. Anyways.
Yep.
But I got to be honest, with... Here at Alabama, you see him weaving through the line. He isn't breaking. He doesn't run with power. It's not going to be his game. But the comps, Alvin Kamara is the comp. Which for every 200-pound guy that tries to go to the NFL and be Alvin Kamara, there's a graveyard
of guys who weren't Alvin Kamara. Yeah,
who weren't Alvin Kamara. It's just so hard to survive and thrive on a fantasy relevant level at that weight, to be there at that level of snaps. So, but that being said, he looks great. He's so explosive. He is special in terms of explosiveness. special when he gets it to the second level, when he gets it out in space. They were doing the extended handoffs to him basically in the early part of the season. He wasn't even getting carries until the previous game against Arkansas.
And I think part of that is acknowledging that you don't want to give a guy 300 touches in college football, and knowing that they didn't need him, but he's looked great up to this point. He's a guy that, if you're playing dynasty fantasy football and you have the number 1 overall pick, you're keeping your eye on for sure. Let's keep on college football running backs. Outside of Bijan Robinson, outside of Jahmyr Gibbs, who has impressed you the most amongst that player group?
Are we talking 2023 class? Because those are both 2023s, or just in terms of potential draft-worthy running backs, I think have increased their stock.
Let's do potential draft-worthy running backs. Who are we liking?
I think, for me, from where my evaluation was before the season to where it is now, a guy who has climbed up my ranks, I just took him in a recent draft with the Devi Royale guys, is Raheem Sanders for Arkansas. Some of the runs, first off, he's 225. He's right there. He's what you want. He's the 6'1", 225. He's not a plotter. You see his burst. He's got real deal jets to be able to kick it into gear at the second level and extend, or at least maintain, a lead on trailing defenders. I think we've seen that. But what's really, he is running with power that few guys have, that still have the ability to hit the explosive runs like he can, 30, 40 yards downfield, because good luck arm tackling him. He's just running right through high-caliber D1 SEC defenders when they try to get high on him. And he's rocked up and thick enough and still agile enough to be able to make, a nice one cut and be able to get an edge on him and create bad angles. So I just think that in terms of the full physical package that he brings to the table, from the 2024 class, he's leapfrogged Braylon Allen for me, who, even though I really like it, I still think he's a top 5 caliber back. I think he falls out of that maybe 3, RB3 range, out of that, and falling into, the 5 range, because I don't see the second gear and the ability to hit the home run like I see with Sanders. So that's who I'd probably go with.
Yeah, and Sanders is a guy that the advanced metrics love too. When you see the guys who've really excelled with, I forget I saw it on Twitter today, but there was something about expected yards gained with offensive line blocking and then actual yards gained. It's Jahmyr Gibbs, and then Raheem Sanders is right there. He's looked great. A guy that, I would love if he ended up on my NFL team. And quite frankly, Arkansas fans should love as well. Hopefully he gets a little more run than KJ Jefferson his Arkansas's offense frustrates me. It is what it is.
Yeah.
But we talked briefly about Georgia Tech and that head coaching position. If you were a prime head coaching candidate for college football, say you just got fired from the Carolina Panthers, and there are 5 open college football positions right now. If you were the head coach and you got to pick of the litter, where would you go? Where is your ideal college football head coaching job right now?
Sure. The easy one would be Wisconsin. However, I think we need to see what happens there at Wisconsin, because they won their first game under DC Jim Leonard, who is obviously, everybody who's watching this knows who Jim Leonard is, from
Wisconsin
Ravens,
legend.
From Wisconsin, obviously Wisconsin safety, All-American, absolute legend. So the thing is about Wisconsin, they like their homegrown guys.
Because they did the same thing with
Barry Alvarez thing, and then Chris was a Wisconsin guy too. They brought in and those are the guys who have done the best. Obviously, Gary Anderson did great. He was an outside guy, but they like the local guys, the homegrown boys. They like to know who's coming in. So I do kind of favor Jim Leonhard for that job, so while I would say it's Wisconsin, I will refrain from naming that for maybe this nameless ex-Baylor Temple head coach who might have been fired from the Carolina Panthers. But I would say for that scenario, it's got to be Nebraska. Because, dude, Nebraska could... What could be? You know, like, if you could... You know, be what it is in Nebraska, like that would have to be it. Because look at the other jobs, right? Arizona State, Pac-12, and they don't have a home. What is the Pac-12? What will it be is the better question. We don't know. And then Carl Durrell, adios, in Colorado.
That's
Nobody wants that job.
Bottom tier. Yep.
That is
the word.
Dead last on everybody's list.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that, you know, the fact that we have an ironed out Nebraska's in the Big Ten. You know, the Big Ten is the number 2 conference. It's obviously the SEC. Fair enough. But as an NBC employee who just, you know, as of next year will be broadcasting the After Dark Big Ten games going forward,
awesome.
and is now invested going forward in that with USC and UCLA coming over, come on down. That I will say that, you know, they are the clear second super conference, and that also bears out if you look at from an NFL draft perspective. Obviously, the SEC sending the most players to the NFL, but then it's the number 2 is a clear Big Ten, and then it's everybody else. So, like in terms of power of teams, with Ohio State, you know, with USC coming in and UCLA, power of teams, strength of player, you know, potential at least going to the NFL, all that. Being in the Big Ten, being in a previously iconic football market, that would be my choice. Though, being a new SoCal resident for the last 17 years, Arizona State does have a little bit of appeal. But they're in the Big 12. So
I tell you what,
the Pac-12.
And that's the most damning part of it, because if you were to ask me like 5-6 years ago, I probably would put Arizona State over Nebraska. This is obvious. This is going to be me showing my youth. Nebraska was never good in my lifetime, or at least not in my college football remembering days. The Husker powers of the 90s, I was still, you know, drinking milk from a bottle at that point, so doesn't really invoke a whole lot of passion or excitement for me. But I understand that there's a ton of tradition there. And Nebraska football is Nebraska. Like, there is no NFL team. There is no baseball. There is it is Nebraska Cornhusker football. Go Big Red. So talk about a passionate fan base. I don't think you're going to have a more passionate fan base out of the available jobs than Nebraska. So we'll see how that goes. And we're talking conferences a little bit. I think we have a hunch who the best team in the Pac-12 is. I think we have a hunch who the best team in the SEC. Well, we know who the top 2 dogs in the SEC are. We know who the best team in the Big Ten is. The Big 12. It's been chaos through and through, but it's been good. Like, there isn't a bad team in the Big 12. Like, there's no team on the Big 12 that you're saying, like, oh, yeah, that's an easy win. Like, maybe West Virginia? Like, I'm not ready to say it about Oklahoma yet.
Yeah, like, maybe, but the fact that there's no Kansas of, you know, 2013 through 2021 in there. You know, there's definitely no layups. You're right. Like, you're going to have to come and bring it every time you go and play someone.
Who would you pick to win this conference as it stands? Because we have 2 undefeated teams playing off this weekend in TCU and Oklahoma State. We just had the Red River rivalry last week. Who is, in your mind, coming out on top in the Big 12?
Well, in my preseason Big 12 preview, I actually took Kansas State plus 1,500 as my favorite dark horse pick to win the Big 12. So, like, I did take a piece of that, you know, threw a $20 bill at it. But so I am, you know, from a selfish point of view, I am kind of hoping that Kansas State does. But if I'm, you know, evaluating the market from just standing here at this point as we sit from the halfway point right now, I'd have to say the team I think is the best team is Texas right now. I think they're clearly the best team. The best on offense, best on defense. They've solved their tackling woes. They were a horrible tackling team the past 2 years. It was almost comical, like how many important open field tackles that led to huge plays caused them games, and this year they've been so much tighter, so much better on that front. And defensively in general, they're top 20 in so many of the key metrics: yards per play, limiting explosiveness, points per drive. They've been excellent on that front defensively, way better than I expected them to be. And the problem is, they already dumped a game in conference to Texas Tech because the mullet master Quinn Ewers was injured, and they had to play Hudson mid-card. So, when it's such a drop in talent level when you're going from Ewers to Card that it's, you look at the difference last game and how that offense was humming. And even against Alabama in that first half, oh my God, Ewers. That's
great.
It was everything I knew was coming, from him. Everything I wanted to see. And I am a full dyed-in-the-wool believer. Like, I'm in on Quinn Ewers. Anyways, so with them, I think it is. But you have the added factor, they already dumped a game to Texas Tech, and they have such a tough schedule still have to play against all these great teams. So that's a factor, But then you got TCU and Oklahoma State, both of them totally undefeated, and they play this week. So one of them is going to dump and get a loss, and then even that out, so you won't have two teams that are undefeated going forward that Texas has to climb in front of. So that's an issue for me too. So I think I'm calling. I think TCU beats Oklahoma State.
Ooh.
This has really been bothering me. It's been bothering me, and it's early. Geez, this is what I could change my mind. I'm gonna be. I've looked this over hard today. I wrote up on it on the column, and the one thing that I know, here's what I do know: there's gonna be plenty of points in that game. Like the over/under is 68.5. Neither team's going to stop either of them. Oklahoma State last year was coached by Jim Knowles, who's now the defensive coordinator of Ohio State, and has turned around that defense.
Everything we said was that this Oklahoma State defensively is what separates them from the rest of the Big 12. Because the rest of the Big 12 didn't play defense except for Oklahoma State. Well, now, I don't think that's the case.
No, they lost Knowles. Some of their key assistants who were underneath him, he took with him, obviously. Like, hey, you want to go to Ohio State? Yeah, later Stillwater. So, that the scheming, totally different. And then a bunch of guys went to the NFL, a couple guys went to Ohio State, and now they're one of the least experienced defenses in the country coming in. And this isn't a reloading situation. They took time. They needed 4 years when Knowles was there to cultivate those guys. Bring all those guys in, coach them up, get those 3-stars into the point where you have a top 5 defense nationally like they had last year. They were awesome. But now you look at what they have, it's night and day. They're actually 110th ranked in terms of their passing defense in the country.
I would have never guessed
that turnaround. Went from 3rd to 110th. And now you're playing TCU, Sonny Dykes' offense, and also the number 1 ranked rushing offense in terms of team performance. Bet you didn't know that. Why would you think TCU, number 1 ranked rushing team? Kendry Miller, who would have been another answer of mine. If it weren't for Raheem Sanders, you would have said a guy that you liked. Hey, Kendry Miller led the entire nation in yards after contact last year. It was 5.6 or something like that. That's bleeping ridiculous.
Filthy.
Ridiculous. 5.6. You led everybody, right, coming into the season. And it was funny, in the offseason you heard there's Amani Bailey, a transfer from Louisiana, and there's Amari Demercado. Dude, I wasn't buying that. Kendry Miller is legit. Big 12 guys don't get a lot of the, the same love as we discussed with the Big 10 and the SEC, but he's got chops. I think he's real. So, if I have to take, I think Texas is the best team, but they're a game down. So, Texas or TCU is my call, but I will go with Texas. I think they're the best team, even though they're a game down.
Selfishly, I am so happy that was your answer, because I put 2 bets in to win the Big 12, and it's Texas and then I put pizza money on TCU. TCU was one of my favorite teams coming into the season. I hammered their win total over 6.5. It's looking like
great. Oh, dude, that win total, huh? 6.5. I had a nice little cushy off conference slate.
That was the thing, right? Opening against Colorado, right, yeah. And I felt really good about that
their
one.
Their little brother SMU, they sort of rub their head and then throw them on their way.
Well, and Sonny Dykes' little revenge game action is great.
Yeah, going in there just stomping on them, right? And then Colorado. They played Colorado in the It might as well be an FCS team.
Yeah,
playing Colorado, like smoked them, ran all over them.
Their passing offense, just run the wing tee at this point. Their passing offense is putrid.
Really bad. I actually took Daniel Arias. He's the one guy that they actually throw to in that offense. I took his under 1 week and it went over on like a garbage time, just a sideline one-on-one prayer jump ball, and he got it. And I was just like, oh, God damn you.
Hey, we can't win them all. But you seem to win most.
I couldn't hate this offense anymore. I can't even bet your unders.
Tough. It's tough.
Yeah, you know.
We hit on
awesome call there.
Yeah, and we hit on Oklahoma State TCU. There are a ton of great games this weekend. I think we have six ranked matchups. I can't. There are what two top 10 matchups because we get Michigan Penn State, we get Bama Tennessee. It's beautiful, and this is like when
I'm gonna go hit the weights. I have a great workout. I know you're obviously a workout guy. You're bigger. You're bigger than I am. You're like my size when I was 15 years younger. When I was your age, like that's what I was lifting.
Fair.
I'm gonna hit it like I'm you, like I'm Cody tonight. I'm so excited about these matchups.
I can't wait. And these are teams that I didn't know what to expect from Tennessee coming this year. I knew Hendon Hooker was good, but I didn't know how good. I knew that Sean Clifford was Sean Clifford, and it's a coin flip of which Sean Clifford you were going to get week to week last year. Turns out we've been on the right side of the coin all season for Sean Clifford. So what do we expect? Let's start with that one. Penn State, Michigan. Do we expect Sean Clifford to continue to be Sean Clifford? Because Michigan's defense is different. They are incredible against the pass.
Incredible against the pass. Incredible against everything, frankly. I think Michigan's, in terms of top to bottom, it's going to be tough for Penn State to compete with what Michigan's bringing on the table. Because, frankly, their defenses, look, Penn State's D.
Oh.
They're awesome.
Joey Porter Jr.
Absolutely.
has been... It's very rarely where you can isolate a defensive back and been like, he has been a difference maker. Derek Stingley Jr. was one of those guys. Joey Porter Jr. seems to be the next one of those guys. He has looked phenomenal so far this season.
Yeah, he's a big kid too. Porter, he's physical. He plays with an edge. I like that. There's somebody who's an undersized power forward on the basketball court, still goes out and loves rattling people's cages underneath the basket. I appreciate that. Anyways, but both defenses, they're absolutely comparable. So what it's coming down to for me is, can Penn State advance the ball against Michigan's D that, look, they're both top 10. Everything. Can they do it? Michigan's offense, I know, can do it. All right? They are top 20 in EPA. Points per drive, 56% success rate, which is ridiculous. They don't have Cade McNamara behind there anymore.
Ooh.
They finally, mercifully, he got injured, which, no offense, but it's Wally Pipp time.
You've
been passed over. It's JJ
time.
JJ
McCarthy was just better.
But absolutely, it's better for everybody involved. And there was no palace coup. You didn't have to do the A2 brew tie, giving Caesar the long knife in the kidney, by putting out McKay DePatrick. He got hurt. It's like, okay, well, I'm sorry he's hurt, but it's like it just worked itself out, and now it's McCarthy, and everybody can go about their business, which is the best thing that could happen. But it's like all of their wins, Michigan dominated every single one of those 5. 96% win rate or better in all 5 of those wins.
But the 5
wins... There's not a lot of
meat on the bones on those 5 teams, though. Maryland was good.
Sure. Maryland.
I guess Iowa does
like
have a
Maryland.
good defense. I will say Iowa has a good defense. So we'll.
But who is Penn State beat? Okay, they had a 51% win expectancy against Purdue in game 1. Purdue probably should have won that game, in my opinion. It was a coin flip. They probably should have. All right, and they beat Brian Harson's Auburn team that is in disarray.
We've seen what they are.
I can't really give them that much respect out of that win. And then, so we don't, even though they haven't had the most intimidating schedule that they've had to overcome, they're ranked 52nd against the pass offensively. They're ranked 35th in the rush. Singleton and Katron Allen have no doubt helped that with a team that has really had problems running the ball over the past couple of years. They were barely over 100 yards, 108 yards rushing per game last year. 3.2 yards per carry last year.
That's
kidding
shockingly
me?
low.
They were a horrible rushing team. Horrible. But they have an experienced line now. Guess what? Nick Singleton coming to town doesn't hurt.
No,
Welcome.
it does not.
Yeah. Katron Allen's a stud, too. He's 220. Both those guys are studs. So that'll rejuvenate a listless run game in a hurry. But I just don't think, again, it comes down to Sean Clifford. Has he been serviceable? Yeah. But against Ohio, against Central Michigan, against Northwestern, come on. He hasn't been tested either. So, Michigan is at least, they beat Michigan State, which,
Yeah.
I get it. How's the Washington win?
Yeah, the Washington's not looking a whole hell of a lot.
Excuse me, they played them last year. Excuse me. Colorado State, Hawaii, and Connecticut were the first. Yeah. But Iowa,
Charmin Ultra Soft. The Iowa defense, though. The Iowa defense has been
Maryland and Iowa. Here we're in the Big Ten, so I can give respect to them doing a pretty damn good job against Iowa's defense. I didn't see them having too much problems. So I just think it comes down to that. It comes down to Blake Corum being a legitimate pro prospect. Even he's only 205. He's undersized.
Another smaller dude.
But he runs hard, and they got a Joe Moore caliber offensive line that I just, both of them rebuilt their defenses. Both of them. And both of them have done a great job with it. But this is a lot of meat, a lot of beef you're throwing at them with all-American caliber guys on their line. Number 1 rated line preseason in the offseason.
I think that's going to be...
If you're going with Joe Moore odds in terms of who's getting which is the best line, it's they're right there.
Yeah.
So I just think it's too much. And the spread at 6.5, obviously, that's
tight.
That's favorite. Yeah, that's a good line. I think that's a good line. I'm staying away in terms of my personal proclivities, but it's in Ann Arbor. I do think Michigan will win. So, money line, but man, I can't wait to watch it.
Oh, that is going to be a beautiful opening to a beautiful college football day. The other game that we got to talk about, Bama and Tennessee. Paint me a picture, because and you talked about this in your article that came out today, which I retweeted. If you haven't read it, absolutely go check it out. It is Eric's. If you want to be ahead on line movements and be ahead in college football and just have when you tweet player props, I know that I have to bet it almost immediately because the line will either move or disappear entirely, which is how you know you are damn good at what you do. But we talked about Tennessee and Alabama in your article today. Tennessee has now gone down to, I think it's 7.5 point dogs. I'm not sure it got to -7. How do we feel about this game? Can Hendon Hooker be that guy? Is Bryce how close? Is Bryce Young playing? Do we know? Do we have any inkling at all?
I don't know. He was out throwing passes in the pregame last game, and they, for whatever reason, elected not to throw him out there. When you got that's like an AC sprain / a separation. Ooh, oh, that's tough. You can't really move your shoulder very much. So, and it's his thrown shoulder, as we saw. We all saw the play where he's just, God, that's how you get injured. He's right there. He's about to hit the ground. And he just does the flip, and it's I'm just going to.
That's how you rolls up on it. It's tough.
Don't do that. Just take the 3 yards, Bryce. anyways, it's just painful to watch. But that's the difference in this game, right now. Because if you bet this now, where it's at plus 7.5, you're either going to be getting value or you're going to be losing value. Because when Bryce Young, if he is playing, he goes out, he's announced that he's playing. Because, look, we didn't know this week. He was out there. He tried it out. They tried. We got no indication from Saban at all. And why would he do it on the eve of... You probably don't appreciate it in your lifetime, but hey, Tennessee, Alabama used to be a big thing.
Feels like 98. Feels like 98.
Exactly. Here we go. Do we have the the hat, the Bear Bryant hat going, all that. So, this is a big rivalry. This is a big game. It's in Neyland Stadium. I actually have been to Neyland Stadium. That place is one of the 5 biggest stadiums in the country. It holds like a buck. Definitely over one.
Yeah.
106, 108.
Something
maybe.
around
I forget
there.
What the exact attendance is. But it's epic. And it's going to be raw. I'm excited. But that being said, I don't know. If Bryce Young is announced, that's everything. Because we saw last game, and I alluded to it a little bit, but they couldn't do anything through the air against Texas A&M, who admittedly has a good secondary to their credit, but they're rebuilding their whole front line, and it's like they couldn't do anything. They won, slant to Jermaine Burton, that was it. So, where they couldn't, they weren't effective moving the ball in both phases of the game. They were turning the ball over. They were they aren't going to be able to get away with that against Tennessee. They're not going to have this Jimbo offense like we talked about. Josh Heupel, they're as potent as any team in the country right now when it comes to their offense, and that's without Cedric Tillman, who is a day 2 caliber NFL draft prospect, who was awesome last season. Ripped up. He was the only guy all season long to tear apart Georgia, where he went for 11 and 151 or something like that. He just put on a clinic against the Dogs, and he was the only one. And he hasn't even been playing. It doesn't even matter. Next man up, Ramel Keaton has been great on the outside, and obviously Jalen Hylett. But I think as it stands right now, you got to take Tennessee. I can't take Alabama with Jalen Milroe there, despite the fact that obviously they have an epic defense. Their defense is as good as you're going to ask for. But man, I want it. I want to see it at Neyland Stadium. Like you said, you want havoc. I want havoc too. And we haven't seen Alabama handle A&M or Texas at all, very well at all. Well within the margin we're talking about here. It opened at 16 and a half, down to 7.5. But man, I think they do. If Milroe's out there, give me Tennessee's probably even.
Yeah,
I'd probably just call it even if I know it's Milroe. You know what I mean? Whereas if it's Bryce Young, it'd probably be 10.5.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm gonna go with havoc.
Neyland's going to be rocking. I am incredibly excited for this game. I think this is 2 teams. If you were to take the jerseys off, right, put on a blindfold, look at these team blind resume. Alabama, admittedly against good teams. Texas is a good team. Texas A&M, they're a good team, but a crappy offense. It is what it is. Tennessee hasn't really struggled this year against anybody. Now, their schedule is not as difficult, but they handled LSU last week, a top 25 team, and dismantled them. I'm excited for Tennessee. If you are a Vols fan, you should. I don't know how you're sober this week. I really don't. I had to call off of work right after the game Saturday.
Seriously.
But
it's been so long.
It should be.
It's been so long since I've been in a spot like this, really.
Well, and it's a rivalry that, I've heard about, but I haven't seen it. And it's great to see it this week. It should be absolutely incredible. We were talking quarterbacks, talking Bryce Young. Young, Stroud, Williams. Obviously, Williams is not, from a draft standpoint, is not in this class. But if you were trying to pick a quarterback out of the transfer portal, and you could get him right now, mid-season, assume Bryce is healthy, who's the best quarterback in college football? Not actually. You know what? Let's leave those guys out because
besides those guys,
those are obvious.
Throwing those guys out.
Those are obvious. Let's leave them out. Outside of those 3, who would you want quarterbacking your program?
it's so easy. It's so easy because we already talked about him. When I'm looking and I'm projecting to the NFL, and I'm projecting to all that in terms of like who I'd be looking at from a Devy perspective, from all that, it is Quinn Ewers. I want Quinn Ewers after those guys because like I love Caleb Williams too, and I think he deserves to be right there.
The jump pass that he had against.
He's great.
Phenomenal.
Like, in terms of being a pure passer, in terms of pure arm talent, Quinn Ewers is got a better arm than Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams does other things, obviously.
Yep.
But like if I'm just looking at who's throwing, he might be number one in terms of me projecting to the NFL level for an NFL franchise. He might even be above C.J. Stroud because he might be. I love him. I think he's that good. He's got an arm that you just can't. There aren't a lot of guys who can just go from flick their hips, just sit there from flick his hips, and throw a absolute rope 15-yard field strike on an out. Like it's just out pass. He's got to get all the way out to the sidelines from the other side, and he's just flicking it, and it's getting there. It's getting there fast, and his release is quick, and just everything about his mechanic. It's beautiful watching him throw. So I can't not see it. I can't see that just he's the closest. Like Trevor Lawrence would be the guy that I've seen from the past few classes out of everybody here now. That I still think Trevor is just perfect, but like he's that kind of a thrower. Like he's that good to me. Quinn Ewers.
His spiral makes me feel things. Like watching him throw a football, it's painting a picture. It's art on a canvas. It's beautiful. If he perms
like all the mobility is
moment,
great. Look, I get it. I love having a guy who can be mobile. But oh boy, that arm.
If he perms his mullet, it'd be ridiculous. But yeah, like you get guys that like obviously everybody wants a guy who can move because you see what Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen and those guys have done at the next level. And I get it, and it's phenomenal. Quinn Ewers can still move well, but the way he throws a football is just special. It's just special.
Absolutely. Just like Quinn Ewers more than Caleb Williams isn't a knock on Caleb Williams. I've got him all over the place in all my leagues, my college fantasy leagues. I drafted him last year. I love Caleb Williams, but I mean, look,
hey, having one guy be great does not mean another guy can also not be great. That it is.
Do anything wrong?
I think we do that too much in this industry a little bit. Is we pump up one guy, and in order to do that, we try to push down another. It's not how that works. Both guys can be absolutely phenomenal. Before we get out of here, Eric, I need to know. This is purely selfishly for me. Anybody who's listening to the podcast, if you want to shut her down, that's fine. But this one's for me. Your player props are, they're candy. They are the most beautiful thing to cross my eyes each and every week when it comes to college football. I don't understand how you do it, and I want to know, what is your process to finding and exploiting these books? Because Vegas has built some of the most beautiful buildings on the planet, but it ain't because they're taking money from you. How do you do it?
No, they're not taking my money. But you know what it is Malcolm Gladwell, renowned, obviously worldwide best-selling author, talks about it in a couple of his books, like Outliers, and then things like that. Where how do you get to be an expert at something, or how do you get to be just really good at something and be able to what's called thin slice and just see something and just know, and just having seen and you put through the hours. Well, I'm in a kind of a unique position where I put in my 10,000 hours by doing college fantasy football starting in 2001 when I acquired the immortal Luke Staley. The immortal Luke Staley from BYU.
That's
right there.
Incredible.
The icon, the great Luke Staley, who was an All-American running back. He won me my first ever college fantasy football championship, almost single-handedly. He's 235, 6'2", and he ran a 4.4 in 2001.
Ooh,
okay? He got
different.
drafted in the 7th round by the Detroit Lions, but he had chronic shoulder issues. There's actually a great article that was written that I read a couple years ago about him, where he talks about how like he never played in the NFL. His shoulders, he just couldn't. He was getting lidocaine shots every game. Like this is the Wild West of college football. You know what I mean?
Kidding.
This is like the North Dallas 40 of college football era, where it was just there you go, lidocaine. All right, there we go.
Yeah,
so he got his shoulders now are in horrible shape, but. Anyways, that's where I started, sort of just capping players and performance and going through that, and just through 22 years of doing that by hand, and then U Sports and CBS for a minute, and finally Fantrax. I was doing this every week, anyways, for 20 years, so it's kind of having seen the systems and the coaching movement and being so as immersed into what college football is as I am anyways, I have a pretty good understanding of the structures and the dynamics and which teams are doing which and who's where. So given that I have a pretty good understanding of all those factors, it kind of just gets thrown in a little stew, and I just kind of go through that and just try to hit as many angles that I possibly can before I make a look, and go from there. But I will say that doesn't really help you in that front of what I do. But what I will say, some things that I look for that at least can make it easier for people listening to, because it's a little more complicated than this. I like looking at shared backfields, shared jobs. It doesn't work as much with receivers, because receivers just in general, if you see a low receiver line at 40 yards, I'm always going to be checking on those, because there's so much variance in a team's 2, 3, 4 receivers in terms of their target distribution on a week-to-week basis in general, that those are generally very profitable spots, because game flow can completely dictate out of it. How is the other team when it comes to their particular, pass defense, rush defense, whatever it might be. But I'll look at players like a good example is last week was Hassan Hall for Georgia Tech. Now, as we just briefly touched on, Jeff Collins had vomited all over that program in their transition from the option to a more pro-style offense. If that's what he wants to call it. You can call that whatever you want, but that ain't pro-style anything. That's garbage. But anyways, he was just a terrible fit for that particular program. He had done well in his previous stops, in fairness to the gentleman. But the previous week, 2 weeks ago, he was gone, and it was the current staff that's there. That's what they're going forward with on an interim basis until they fill that position, likely after the season or whatever have you. But they're going with those guys, so it's a new regime that was taken over. Hassan Hall went out and got 20 carries. I faded Dante Smith, who was the previous starting running back, sort of nominally, even though he was in a split. He was out there listed at 32.5 rushing yards. I faded him. He only got 2 carries. And then that week, Hassan Hall got 20 carries. He got, everything but maybe 2 carries out of the backfield distribution. He got all of them.
College football.
Exactly, and he went for $150. And it's like, okay, now they're playing Duke this week, and he's listed at 61.5 rushing yards when he got 20 carries last week. It's a new regime. This is the standard going forward. It isn't a soft game. It's a conference game. And this is against a lower division opponent, a lower caliber opponent of defense that's Duke. And it's like, this is what they're going to do. This is... All right, things have changed. The trend the winds have shifted. This is what's happening. So that was actually my best bet of the week, and it cleared pretty easily because you look at the trends, too. That's an important factor of this. Sure, you can go, and when things are settled, they settle, but you look at the trends and how it's flowing, and you attack weak lines on unders, and you attack recency bias and lack of understanding of depth chart movement on overs, where you have guys that just aren't, that are getting not too many carries to be set low. You go with them, and you play that volume, game at a very, granular level is what I'd say if you're looking to do that. So play that volume.
Love that, Eric. That was an absolute gem. I appreciate that. So 2 takeaways is all of the stuff that you just said, and then also we need 22 years of experience. I will get to working on it. I
right,
will,
just get it to 22 years. Right?
I'll work on it. We'll get there. But Eric, thank you so much for coming on, man. I really, really, really appreciate it. at CF Froton on Twitter. I'll throw all of his links in the description of the show and the description of the YouTube if you guys want to check his stuff out. I'll link his article that he posted today because it was absolutely incredible. You need to check that out. Eric, thank you so much. And everybody listening, if you like this content and you got something valuable from it, you learned something from Eric, because I know I learned something from Eric, hit that subscribe button and leave your winners in the comments. I want to see what you guys are tailing in college football this weekend. I absolutely appreciate it, and we'll see you in the next one.